All right. It's a wonderful evening to everybody listening to all joining us for this call this wonderful afternoon. And for whatever time it is with you over there, I want to say good day to you and a happy weekend to all of you. We are very much very sorry for coming up behind schedule. We are just 60 minutes into the call, and we really apologize for that delay. Is Please pardon us, okay? Uh, as you all know from the flyer and of course from the notifications you've gotten concerning the call of today, we'll be talking about the recent developments as touching the exit of United States of America from the climate treaty. Talking about the Paris climate agreement. But before we delve into that very well, I would permit me to uh, introduce myself. Okay, Oluwafunsho Ogumoroti is my name, and I'm joining, of course, hosting and of course anchoring the program with Mr. Goodness on the call this afternoon. All right, like I said, we'll be having a kind of Jojo, a roundtable discussion concerning the exit of USA, that's United States of America, from the climate treaty, that's Paris climate agreements. We are looking at the pros and the cons. Okay, what can we take away from this recent development, this executive order, signed by the just newest, I think it should be the newest president in the world now. I'm talking about President Donald Trump John. Okay, just in the course of the week, I think that was on Monday, he was sworn in, and he swung into action by declaring this executive order of the United States of America's withdrawal from the Paris Agreement. So on the call today, we will have arrays of seasoned, speakers, and of course seasoned panelists, and they are actually folks in the box. You know what that means? They are actually the round peg in the round hole for the discussion this afternoon. So on the call as speakers for today, we have Tato Gabatse. She's actually a Motswana, and is let's say her citation is very rich, and then that's why I said these speakers today, they are actually folks in the box. Tato is an enthusiastic climate justice advocate dedicated to raising awareness of climate impacts with a focus on gender responsive solutions. She's actively involved in global networks that contextualize UNFCCC processes from an African perspective, ensuring gender sensitive approaches in policy briefs, campaigns, and programs. Of course, she is from the one of the South African countries, talking about Botswana, and she is the development and administrative director at the World. Okay, so we make you welcome on the call this afternoon, and not in particular order, as called Sharon Schneider. Okay, she's a Nigerian and of course also an Israeli. She is a climate and peace activist, National Geographic Young Explorer, and the founder of the global grassroots movement Tuesdays for trash, tackling the garbage crisis facing our planet. So you can actually also attest to that she's actually a fox in the box when you talk about climate campaign. And another lady we have in the house this moment is Ramina Polita. All right, I think I should be able to get the name correctly. She's a Kenyan, and she's an environmentalist, fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty, and founder Kisumu Environmental Champions. It's good to have you on the call this afternoon, ma. And not leaving it alone to the ladies, okay? We have a guy in the on the call this afternoon, and we're having Mr. Abubakar Sadiq Aminu on the call as one of the speakers. He's a Nigerian, and he's a trained climate reality leader and founder of Climate Active Initiative, a youth-led organization dedicated to climate sustainability and environmental preservation. He is passionate about raising awareness, fostering education, and advocating for solutions to issues affecting communities, especially in the global south, which we all, especially African countries, we belong to. Sadiq's work focuses on empowering communities, promoting renewable energy, and facilitating impactful dialogues on global climate policies. Okay, we don't have to the conversation this afternoon. Once again, call this. I can spot Mr. Abubakar and Mrs. Angelina um, on the call this afternoon. So I think without wasting much time, I would want us to go into the conversation very immediately. Okay, I will be giving the mic to Mr. That's Mr. Sadiq. Okay, uh, what do you think will be okay? Let me start from here. What is actually the Paris Agreement all about, and the connection to climate change, Mr. Sadiq Abubakar? Okay, I think you can hear me, please. Mr. Sadiq Abubakar, can anybody hear me, please?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear, sir.
Okay. The Paris Agreement is an internationally binding treaty that directly addresses climate change by aiming to significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions globally, with the primary goal of limiting rise in average temperature to below 2 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial levels, while pursuing efforts to limit increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And uh, the agreement is a legally binding international treaty on climate change. It was adopted by 196 parties at the UN Climate Change Conference, COP21.
All right, thank you very much. We appreciate you for that. That was a great one from you. Taking the microphone to Mrs. Angela Gabatse. All right, please, if pardon me if I'm not able to call the name very well. Okay, I'm taking the microphone to you. Okay, can you kindly put an icing on the cake of what Mr. Abubakar has said concerning what Paris Climate Agreement is all about now?
Thank you very much, host. The name is Tato Angelina Habaitse. I didn't quite catch the yours, but thank you so much, and thank you for sharing, Mr. Abu. Like he had iterated that the Paris Agreement is an international treaty with a global effort to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. One of the targets he had mentioned we should have reached by 2030, but as we have seen, last year was recorded one of the hottest years, and I think by now we've already reached 1+ degrees. So we are not going to be able to meet that. One of the things that the targets by the Paris Agreement is to reach net zero emissions by 2050. And the framework establishes countries to set their own emission reduction targets through the NDCs and other mechanisms such as mitigation, adaptation, and Back to you, host. Not sure if I'm audible.
Yes, we are sincerely sorry for the break in the connection there. So I will take over from the host since he's having some technical glitch. Uh, Thank you, Tato, for sharing that with us on the Paris Agreement. Um, Now, since 2015, the Paris Agreement was adopted. How far and how well is the agreement impl- implementation in member countries? Uh, Tato, I don't know if you can hear me, please. Okay, Sadiq, while we're waiting for our speaker,
You've talked about the reaction of members states towards this order. Do you think that this order affects NGOs' drive for climate action, especially in Africa? If you think so, how?
Yeah, this order have really affected the drive for climate change in Africa, especially for African NGOs working to address climate change, which will be primarily due to decrease in funding. US have been the major contributor to the Green Climate Fund. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why he even gave for him giving the executive order. And also, the United States have supported so many projects, including renewable energy, afforestation, and other disaster risk reductions. So, without their funding, there are so many initiatives that are being used to tackle deforestation and also uh, combating desert encroachment and also resilient agriculture in drought areas such as the sub-Saharan Africa. So the withdrawal may also hinder international collaboration and partnership with US-based organizations. There are so many organizations in the US that used to fund organizations here in Africa. But however, this situation presents an opportunity for us in Africa because we need to explore alternative funding sources such as regional bodies like African Development Bank, and also we need to see how we can get to have more policies in the government so that once we drive for more policies that are driving climate friendly activities, we might not be able to like have so much dependency on the other parts of the world because our government have a lot of resources to do that, but I don't know whether it's lack of awareness or lack of push for these policies. But this, at the other hand, will be an eye opening for us to see how we can be able to get funding and how we can be able to push our government to be enforcing strict regulations on some, let's say, on greenhouse gases, and also for example they might be able to to use polluters pay principle, whereby big organizations pay for the damages that they have done for the environment and the rest. So we can, it's for now, we can feel the pain because funding will no more come, not like it's been before, because the US is they are the highest funders of uh, the this thing, uh, Paris Agreement. So with this, even though it's not good for us, we can also use it to see how we can diversify and also get things done without us waiting for someone from there to come and come over to here to be helping us. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for that response. Because from what you've just said now, knowing that US actually contributes so much to the climate crisis that we are facing, and they having to withdraw, based on what you have said, affects our NGO drive towards climate action. What would you prefer as the way forward from this order, especially to the global south, knowing that we are being affected grossly by the climate change? What is like, what do you prefer in this case?
Well, I think to address this, we need to prioritize regional initiatives and capacity building. We can do that. We have African Union, which they can be able to like come up with initiatives. There are already initiatives. There's African Climate Strategy, and also we can explore alternative funding sources, including partnership with private corporations, the World Bank, African Development Bank, and other national frameworks. Like in Nigeria, we have Nigeria Sovereign Green Bond, which can attract investment and support local climate projects. So, and at grassroots levels, the Great Green Wall in Nigeria supports communities by promoting renewable energy and sustainable agriculture. So partnering with this organization like the Great Green Wall is a project funded by the uh, World Bank. So partnering with such organizations will give us an edge to navigate through this. Uh, I think looking inwards regionally, collaborating with other countries to see that we have achieved our goals without us waiting for them to come. Because if you can see the kind of emissions that we have here in Africa, we cannot compare ourselves to even a county in the US or a village in China and the rest, because they do pollute and we are the ones that are the receiving end, because the kind of pollution that we do cannot be even compared to one factory or one industry that is there. So we need to mitigate those things before we even go there. I will give for example with Nigeria, we can be able to like partner with Dangote because of the kind of the industry he have. We can be able to have working understanding with him, because yes, you do provide fossil fuels. So this is what we want you to do. As we are providing fossil fuels, this is what we are doing. You provide capacity building for climate leaders. The climate leaders will go on and do step down training to their communities, and also they do drive for afforestation and the rest. So it will not be like you are just polluting and just going scot free, and we waiting for someone from not even in Africa to come and provide solution for us. So since they are now saying that they are giving money that they doesn't want to, let them do that. So we now work with our people that are here within us and see how we can get funding from them. I think that's the best solution.
Wow, thank you so much for giving us that idea and the solution to what is going on. Because you know, since this has happened, there's need for us to now look inward to see what do we do from our end. So thank you so much for that response. We will now go back to Ramina, who is joining from, who is a Kenyan on this call too as well. You're welcome, Ramina, to this call.
Thank you so much. Well, I'd like to address the question you asked, what is the way forward? Which is a big question that actually the whole of Africa, not only the whole of Africa, also the whole global south is asking themselves as USA's withdrawal leaves a funding gap impacting Africa's climate projects. Well, for me, I do believe that there are many key areas that we can be able to do in order to compensate on that side, especially by strengthening South to South cooperation to share resources and knowledge within the countries. Like, for example, Africa can try to partner up with Asia and Latin America and vice versa. Then also, I do think the same way that the previous speaker had mentioned, we need to seek alternative funding, especially from the EU, China, and private sectors that we've been working with. I also believe that we need to integrate climate action into national budgets and empower local communities, especially highlighting on equal distribution of the NDCs, which is the one that normally determines how much funding is going to be used in the country. Then there's the advocating for accountability from historical emitters and fairer climate finance mechanisms. So it will also help us in, filling in the gap and to know which kind of emissions, the number of emissions that is being, emitted every now and then. We also like to call upon governments to regulate these corporations, especially the fossil fuel corporations, and also to encourage the more taxation of monopolies that are at the heart of the inequalities around the world, especially the ones that are affecting the climate crisis. Then I also truly believe that we can leverage Africa's renewable energy, which would potentially attract more investments and lead the green transition. So despite all these challenges, I feel like Africa can drive climate action through innovation and collaboration. However, it's really good to foster more collaborations. Yeah, that's all from my point.
Wow, thank you so much, Ramina, for sharing this with us.
Thank you.
We need to look for other alternative because we cannot sit down and then watch the US action affecting our work as activists or as NGOs making impact in our communities. I will now go back to Tato. Since 2015, we have had the Paris Agreement, which was adopted. How far and how well is the agreement implementation in member countries? Tato.
Thank you, goodness. Please let me know if I'm audible.
Yes, please.
Can you hear me? Okay, thank you very much. Well, since it's the adoption of the Paris Agreement, we've been seeing countries with varying degrees of progress in implementing their commitments. Countries in the global south have been trying to use localized initiatives. We are seeing one of the countries here at the side of Africa, Morocco, being able to work on the commitments, but with the limited capacity and limited technical support that they're getting from the Global North and the UNFCCC. And the first global stocktake report from September 2023 does indicate that the current national pledges are far behind and insufficient to meet the long-term goals. And this is due to the lack of financial and technical support. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Tato. I will go over to Ramina. Ramina, what possible impact does the US withdrawal have on businesses and industries that are pursuing climate goals in regards to carbon footprints and environmental sustainability?
Thank you so much for the question. I do believe that the businesses and the green initiatives have really been impacted by the US exit from the Paris Agreement. One, I think there'll be uncertainty in the global markets, especially since businesses rely on international climate agreements for stability of the face market, which is also unpredictable, especially in sectors tied to green technologies. I also do think there'll be reduced investments in green initiatives, which will bring a funding gap in climate finance, businesses in renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, and green infrastructure, which may experience slow growth. But I also do believe that it's going to have competitive disadvantages, such as when the companies in other countries who have committed fully to the Paris Agreement could gain a competitive edge by aligning with global sustainability standards, leaving the US-based businesses lacking. So it will make a backlog within the profitability and also the investments, the flow income that will be coming in with the companies. I also do highlight that there'll be a disruption in the supply chain, like when the climate change exacerbates risks like the resource scarcity and extreme weather, which will affect the supply chains, especially in agriculture and manufacturing, to those sectors that were fully committed and were getting a lot of investments from the US. I also do think the market opportunities will shrink, whereby the African businesses who are relying on international climate funds from the US, the entities may struggle to access resources and scale operations. Then I also do highlight that there will be innovation slowdown, especially when it comes to reduced global collaboration, which may hinder the development of green technologies and climate resilient solutions. So it's a bit kind of hectic when it comes to that sector, because most of them, they are trying to diversify their funding resources, which is one of the things that they're looking at, and trying to embrace sustainability so that they also get a profit margin, but at the same time to create more impact as they go on, despite the US withdrawal.
This actually means so much to us in the global south. Sadiq, you are a climate reality leader trained by former US Vice President. When you heard about this decision by the US government, what was your opinion in regards to climate movement and then activism worldwide?
Hello.
Well, the moment I had it, it sparked conversation within our group, with the trained climate reality leaders. Although it was expected, because before he lost his election, he have also opted out of both this and the World Health Organization, and he did the same after winning this. It is well anticipated, but for me, him dropping out and not dropping out based on our discussion will not drive us backwards. We will still continue with what we are doing. It's just we'll just face some issues that are not that much, but it really gives us a heads on that there are some people that doesn't care about climate change, even though they are seeing it. They have seen what the havoc that that have wreaked in California and everything, but they choose to close their eyes and say they don't believe in climate change and financing climate change and the rest. So we will try all the best that we can to see that we have continued the advocacy that we are doing. We continue educating people on the effects of climate change, and we let them see vividly what will be and what might be if there is mitigation strategies that are in sight. So all in all, we will continue with our advocacy and everything, and we will also hope that countries like European countries like England and the rest will find a diplomatic way of getting them to come back, getting the US to come back into the Paris Agreement. If not, then I think the world should just forge ahead. Because of US alone, we cannot say that everything might come to a stop and rest. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sadiq, for sharing that with us. I will go over to Ramina. Ramina, will the US withdrawal encourage other nations to reconsider their commitment to Paris Agreement, or will it strengthen their resolve in this case? Hello, Ramina. Don't know if you can hear me.
Well, actually, I do believe that obviously there is a drawback with the countries who are fully committed to the Paris Agreement, especially since a lot of them are very disappointed, as you know, it's also going to be hectic as nations who are reliant on the US funding or leadership, which may feel less motivated to ramp up their own commitments. So it might lead to some nations backing off from the Paris Agreement, looking at the amount of resources that they should be able to see, and that means that they will try to look for either an alternative or they'll cut off their own side of the bargain. Another thing is that I do believe there's a shifting.
Ramina, it seems we have lost you. Okay, so while we're waiting for Ramina, Tato, we will come back to you now. Now, what change will the withdrawal of the US from the Paris Agreement, knowing that this is between nations to limit global warming below 2 degrees, what will this lead to us or lead to the US and the global South in regards to fossil fuel and then renewable energy?
Thank you, goodness. The withdrawal will lead to increased reliance on fossil fuels, with the US being one of the largest greenhouse gas emitters globally at 16%, which is 4 times more the whole continent of Africa. And like Ramina had mentioned before, some other countries might feel like pulling out of the agreement, especially those who are reliant on fossil fuels. Also looking at that, the US has declared an energy emergency so that they can expedite more pipelines and extractions. So countries in the global south will face challenges in transitioning to renewable energy, as that more oil or more energy that is going to be made available from fossil fuels. If there's more supply, then the prices will go low and renewable energy will look less attractive. But we are hopeful that the other large group, the BRICS, that has been pushing and moving forward renewable energies, will persist, and that will bridge the gap between what we are expecting to experience as hiccups from the US withdrawal. Thank you.
So, thank you so much for sharing that perspective with us. So we're about closing the session, but before we move to our listeners to ask if they have any question, we'd like to hear from our speakers their final thoughts on the subject matter. just in 1 minute. I'll start with Sadiq. Sadiq, please.
Um, what I can say is we need to we need to look inward. We need to find a way to source our fundings, and we also need to. There are projects that we will be able to do without even funding, like advocacy visits and the rest. So we need to forge ahead. We need to continue with what we are doing because we cannot wait until when things have gone bad before we also uh, start complaining that it's because of lack of funding and the rest. So we need to forge ahead, and especially I would like to state this: we need to have one voice in the global south, especially in Africa. We need to have one voice. We need to bring on policies that will be suitable for each zone. Let's say, for example, in West Africa, we have our different climate, we have different problems that are facing, different climate change problems that we are facing. So we need to sit down and have this dialogue and see what and what do we need to propose, what and what do we need to do for our government to be integrating climate change projects into their budgets, climate financing into their budgets, and the rest. If we have one voice, we don't even need to be waiting for other people to come and fund us, because we can be able to push for policies and the rest, so that the government can be able to fund in their budgets to also have climate change support in their budget. And also we need to be sure that there are some regulatory bodies within Africa. We need to ensure that those regulatory bodies are working, and we also need to be sure that whatever it is that the government and the private sectors are doing align with best practices to the environment. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that final thought with us. Tato?
Thank you, goodness. I believe that with or without the US, there is great potential for the global south to get for more effective climate action. We have the UN Finance for Development conference coming up. Let's use all these other engagements to strengthen international cooperation and find ways on how we can collaborate on technology transfer and capacity building for renewable energy projects. And let's not just look to our governments. As civil society, let's find ways on how we can tap into our network across different countries and bring the technology, the expertise from our fellow colleagues and networks back to our respective countries and likewise. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing with us our speakers. In fact, personally, I've learned so much from this session, and I believe our listeners too have learned so much. So once again, I would like to appreciate our listeners and our amazing speakers. Thank you for taking out this time to join this space despite the network challenge. Thank you for being patient with us and sharing these ideas, this knowledge with us. And we do hope that based on what has happened, we'll still keep on the fight, knowing that climate change is real and one country decision will not affect our collective decision as activists or community developers, people who make change in our various communities. So thank you so much, and do have a lovely weekend, and do enjoy your day. Thank you.